Morning, Chris.
Good morning, Allison.
We are Chris in the garden. This is Chris.
I'm in the garden.
Today we're going to just cover some website common questions and answers. What type of lawns do you recommend that are drought tolerant?
Bermuda grass, St. Augustine, and turf-type tall fescues. The turf-type tall fescue was my favorite. It's evergreen. It's green all year long. It'll take the sun. I water my tall fescue once a week, and if it gets really hot, I water twice a week. I mow it every week, and it is a faster growing. I just like the fact that it doesn't go dormant, doesn't overgrow its boundaries, so it kind of stays put. The Bermuda grass creeps. St. Augustine, they'll creep into flower beds in places where you don't want them. The Bermuda and the St. Augustine, they tend to have dormancy issues. They go to sleep usually around November or lose their color, and they'll go dormant all the way into February. So 3 or 4 months, usually you have a brown lawn. Bermuda could go weeks without water, and even though it might lose its color, and then you water it or it rains, it'll come back. The roots can go 6 feet deep. It just will not grow in the shade.
Okay. Tall fescue can grow in the shade though?
40% with what they call Marathon 1. Marathon 2 can tolerate 20% shade. If you have a need for St. Augustine, which tends to repair itself with dogs, urination, things like that, kids playing, St. Augustine does repair itself, and it does fantastic in the shade. And it loves the sun. It grows out in Palm Springs, so it could take the heat.
How can I stop crabgrass from ruining my lawn?
Crabgrass is really hard to kill now. Best thing is, and it's an excellent question, because how can I stop it? You prevent it. If you have crabgrass really bad this summer, it's going to go to seed, and it'll die, because crabgrass is annual. It's with us less than 1 year, and the fact is, after it dies, we'll say November, December, it'll leave holes where it used to be, because it just literally disappears, and it'll leave a ton of seeds. You've got to remember to put down dimension in February. When you put down dimension, it works for 4 months. And in that 4-month period, when the crabgrass decides to germinate, that's when it works. You have to use dimension prior to its germination, which is typically March in Southern California, and the dimension binds in the soil for 4 months, and any crabgrass seeds that decide to germinate sooner, some crabgrasses will germinate later, and if it's down and it works for 4 months, you're going to kill the crabgrass as it's perpetually germinating, and then it dies, and before it dies, it'll turn purple or purplish red, and it's a very, very heavy cedar. Please remember to use dimension in February.
Put a rest to those seeds, huh?
Knock them out.
Nice.
Boom, boom.
What type of fertilizer is good to use on my lawn this time of year?
With tall fescues, I'm going to recommend, now that it's July, a slow release, such as Best Super Turf, which is a 25-5-5. It works for 3 months. Lebanon Proscape, that's what I use at home. It's a 3-month release. It's a 3206, and if it was Bermuda or St. Augustine, I would go with a 21714 Turf Royale. I recommend fertilizing year-round. With the tall fescue, go 3 months with a time release, but with the faster-growing Bermudas and the St. Augustines, 4 to 6 weeks on Bermuda. St. Augustine about every 6 weeks, and the Turf Royale you can use year-round on both of those varieties.
Okay.
Even though they have a dormancy issue, if you keep using the Turf Royale, it will release in colder temperatures. We'll say November through February. Most fertilizers release when the soil temperature is above 55 degrees, but once that temperature goes down, the only nitrogens that release are nitrate nitrogens, and that's why Turf Royale has an advantage. You can use that on all grasses, even the tall fescue, even in the winter. So most fertilizers have ammonia or ammoniacal nitrogen, which is NH4. Nitrate is NO3. Well, the NO3s, those are the ones that release no matter what time of year. It could be hot, cold, warm, freezing. Nitrates release no matter what.
Do you have an herbicide that will kill nutgrass?
It's called sedgehammer. It's like a sledgehammer, but drop the L. It kills selectively just sedges, and it won't hurt any turf grass as long as that turf grass is established. A little tiny packet makes a gallon, which covers 1,000 square feet, and you probably need to use it from April, once a month, from April into November. I've had it sit in the tank, and I've treated small areas, and I'd left it in the tank for more than 6 months, and I would spray a little patch of it, and it would brown out and kill it. I would just spray once a month because all the satellites, they start coming up. And the worst part about nutgrass or sedge is that it can hide underneath, say, hardscaping. It could be down here under a sidewalk, a patio, a driveway, etc.
Can you tell me if you carry anything that will help me weed and feed my St. Augustine, which is growing clover?
Yes. So there's a selective herbicide called Trimec that's in a weed and feed. We carry a high yield product. It's a 1505 and it has Trimec in it. It's a little 18-pound bag that covers 5,000 square feet. You put this weed and feed product on a wet lawn, and then for 24 hours it needs to sit there. And then after 24 hours, you have to water the whole product in thoroughly, because the fertilizer and the Trimec are sitting on the surface, and that needs to be because the oxalis, or the clovers that are wet when you initially apply the fertilizer, the herbicide Trimec has to stick to those wet weeds. The fertilizer sitting on top too, and if it sits too long without getting watered in, it could burn. So that's why you need to water it in after about 24 hours thoroughly, a good 15-20 minutes of water.
When is the best time to overseed your lawn?
If I'm doing Bermuda, I'm going to say July is the best month of the entire year. Peak daylight hours, very warm, hot temperatures. The Bermuda loves it. Usually Bermuda doesn't require overseeding because it stolonizes, it runs and repairs itself, just like St. Augustine does, as we discussed earlier. The thing with tall fescue, which seems to be the predominant turf choice in Orange County and Southern California, they tend to go thin because urination from pets and foot traffic. Do need to overseed from time to time. October, November is the best months of the year. The reason why October is so good, right now the soil temperature is warming up, and it's going to continue to warm up. July, August, even September, the temperature of the soil will dramatically increase as we go into summer. And even at the end of summer, the soil temperature is warmer than it is now. And when you have October, we're still having the very warm soil conditions. The difference is we have cool nights. And in October, you can't ask for a better situation for overseeding tall fescue turf. 3 to 5 days germination for tall fescue. And if you were to overseed with Bermuda, you're probably talking 10 days to 2 weeks for germination with Bermuda in July. I could sod. Best months would be October, November for the tall fescues, bluegrasses, ryegrasses, and then for the warm season, I like St. Augustine, Bermuda to be done in July.
So whether it's overseeding or brand new lawn, same
Yes.
temperature of soil.
Thank you, Allison, for inviting me to your garden. Thank
We
you.
are the
Orange County Farm Supply.